anti-vaccine movement has plagued publics around the globe, literally and figuratively, and has brought countries to their knees. Recently, New York has announced a state of public health and safety emergency regarding the measles outbreak in Brooklyn. The measles cases in Europe have been the highest in 20 years as a direct result of skeptical parents choosing not to vaccinate. Something needs to be done to prevent potentially harming misinformation from reaching the public, as well as to create legal ramifications for skeptics who do not vaccinate and potentially put the public at risk. Now, this is not a small cult following as many of you might think. The rapid spread of misinformation is a very large-scale and serious problem, affecting even those with high position of influence. Playing now is a segment of one of the Republican presidential debates of November 2015.
And we've had so many instances, people that worked for me just the other day, 2 years old, 2.5 years old, a beautiful child, went to have the vaccine and came back and a week later got a tremendous fever, got very, very sick, now is autistic.
President Donald Trump has falsely tweeted over the proclaimed link between vaccines and autism over 20 times. Now, where did this vaccine panic come from? Widespread fear that vaccines cause autism originated with a 1995 study that was published by Andrew Wakefield, a now disgraced doctor, where he falsely made assumptions that linked the MMR vaccines, which stands for mumps, measles, and rubella, could cause autism in children. He was interviewed in May of 2016 as a follow-up when he faced allegations, where he himself said what the research team's mistake was and how this notion came to be. Playing now is an audio clip where Dr. Andrew Wakefield deals with allegations and explains how this study's result came up.
Now, by that stage, as a researcher, I had looked in great detail at the safety studies of MMR. I became very, very concerned that those studies were totally inadequate. Now, this is not just my opinion, because subsequently, what is called the Cochrane Review, which is one of the gold standard reviews of the medical literature, has come forward and said the same thing. And their words were that the safety studies, the pre-licensing safety studies of MMR vaccine, were largely inadequate, particularly compared with the single vaccines. In other words, the safety studies of the single vaccines were better. For example, if I went to the Food and Drug Administration and I had 3 antihypertensive drugs, 3 blood pressure drugs, and I said, I've got these 3 drugs, I've got a license for each one individually, but I want to put them together in the same tablet. Can I just put the 3 licenses in a folder and hand it to you and get a license for the combined drug? They would throw me out the door, quite rightly. And they would say, come back when you have done a comparative study of every drug in combination with the other and compared them with the single drug for side effects, for adverse reactions. That should have been done with the MMR vaccine, and it was not. There were many assumptions made about the safety of this vaccine, and I believe that children are now paying the price for those assumptions.
Facebook is considered a safe haven for anti-vaccine groups. This is simply because they are allowed to, since nothing in the terms of service says anything about the spread of potentially dangerous information. In fact, a mother of one of these groups refused to vaccinate their child, and the first ever recorded case of tetanus in over 3 decades costed an Oregon family well over $800,000 just in hospital bills. The boy later appeared before Congress after his recovery, where he testified and confirmed that his mother's sources were from Facebook along with unofficial, unscientific sites. As a response to the measles crisis in New York, unvaccinated children have been banned from public places such as schools, churches, and shopping centers, and is said to have effect for 30 days, or until these children have their MMR vaccines. Upset anti-vaccine parents started hosting what they call measles parties, where the goal is to expose their children to measles. Experts say that this is a terrible idea and can lead to serious consequences for the infected children, including death. Now, with all this happening across the nation, it is clear that the false information needs to be stopped from getting into the public. The government cannot play that part, however, because the limit on free speech could be related to communist China and their censored media. No, this falls into the hands of individual corporations. Amazon Books has taken initiative by revoking every anti-vaccine and flat earth book in their stock. This series of events played out similarly to what happened after the death of Matthew Shepard in Laramie, Wyoming, when Steve Jimenez, author of The Book of Matt, tried writing the objective truth that Matt was not a perfect poster child. He was berated, called a homophobe despite being a homosexual himself, and sent death threats. The same reoccurring issue here is that people want their truths, not the objective truth. A parallel that skeptics are drawing are that of a totalitarian governing system. one where the government tries to control every aspect of a citizen's life to raise sheeple. Although the government has made restrictions, such as banning unvaccinated children from schools in New York, as well as in several European countries, the American government has not and will not censor free speech because it is not in their power to. To stop a problem, I think that we really need to understand where it comes from. Why do the anti-vaccine advocates act the way that they do? Well, there are two main reasons. The first one being a misunderstanding of the chemicals that make up a vaccine. Parents act out of love towards their children. They will do what they think is necessary to keep their child safe. The second reason is the conspiracies against the government. These people believe that the movement that goes against what the government is telling them to do will help, because their belief is that the corrupt government system has teamed up with large pharmaceutical companies in order to produce more money. In the mindset of someone who is trying to make a difference, this is absolute progressivism. People are taking issues they deem worthy and are trying to combat the corruptness. We need to remember that these are not bad people, but they are just misinformed, and acting in a way that they believe will keep their children safe. It is the corporations where this information is relayed that have to have this responsibility of keeping the facts straight. In conclusion, it is the misinformation and the mass confusion that creates these problems, and they can be combated by having the government place regulations and ramifications for those who don't vaccinate, as well as having the responsibility of censoring and regulating information put onto large corporations. Thank you for listening.